Thank you for tuning in to Ungentrified with Kent Johnson. Ungentrified takes a pure, unfiltered view on pop culture, music and television, film, politics, current events, and topics central to the worldwide Black community. Ungentrified is an audio safe space for celebrating Black culture in its purest form. Thank you guys for joining us. Here we are again with another episode of Ungentrified with Kent Johnson. I am your host, Kent Johnson, and today's topic is interesting. I'm glad that I'm having this discussion. But before we get into the nitty-gritty for today, I do want to talk about current events and get some hot takes from my guests, who you'll be learning who I'm talking to shortly. But before I introduce the guests, we're going to talk about some things that have recently been in the news this week. So are you ready to chat about that?
Bro, let's chat about it, man.
All right. So the first thing on our agenda today is coming out of Pennsylvania. So the superintendent of Blue Mountain School District in Pennsylvania told the State House Education Committee that he has equipped all of his classrooms with buckets of rocks for the children to throw at potential school shooters. Mm-hmm. And of course, the news took it and created a ruckus around it. But his thinking is that if an armed intruder, and I'm quoting him directly, if an armed intruder attempts to gain entrance to any of the classrooms, they will face a classroom full of students armed with rocks, and they will be stoned. Do you think that is an effective form of protection for our students in a classroom?
No, not at all. Because just think about, if a intruder is on campus, people are already nervous. Kids are already nervous. And directing kids to a bucket of rocks is not the most effective solution, because you're already creating chaos. I think whenever an intruder is on campus, you need to... I did see one example where there's this big safety box that have been installed in classrooms where 20 or 30 kids can fit into a safety box at one time. So if the bell or something rings, all the kids go to the safety box and it's locked down.
So it's essentially like a panic room.
Like a panic room.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, so I think that's a very effective solution, because an intruder can't get in without a code, or they're just locked out. But getting kids to run around a classroom just to hold rocks in their hand, it's not going to do anything to anybody, especially if they have like bulletproof armor or whatever on, or if they have a helmet. You just never know what type of people are going to come, invade a school.
And my thinking is, on a regular day, which we hope all days are regular school days for children in the classroom, but where are these rocks situated? And I could just see like the class knucklehead taking a rock and throwing it at somebody's head in the middle of class.
Easily.
Or just being used for wrong in those days where, school isn't being attacked in any way, shape, or form. It's just, why would you have a bucket of rocks? Who decided that this was okay as a form of protection versus, I don't know, just taking the guns out of people's hands?
Exactly. Like, just think about, when I think about rocks, I'm thinking about what size of the rock? They're going to be like little pebbles?
Right.
Or are they going to be like big rocks that weigh about 2 or 3 pounds? Think about a kindergartner. They're not going to run and just think about rocks.
Right. And then my thinking is, who's making money selling rocks to this school? Like, they had to put out a call for bids for somebody to be the supplier of the rocks for the school district.
It's actually pretty crazy that they would come up with a solution like that. And I think that we just need to have more, lesser guns in America, because I'm not for everybody having a gun, but I think that we should have better protocols. Like, I think no matter what kind of school district it is, there should be metal detectors. Everybody should be searched down, because if me coming from a rural town, where people are just friendly, people, have visitors come to the school and they'll let anybody in. And you never know if that person has a gun on them or not. That person could say, hey, I'm going to see so-and-so, my kid or whatever. And that person can be out their meds or whatever. And shoot somebody, or a class. You just never know about people. So I think that everybody, no matter what type of school district you're in, because just think about these school districts that have been targeted, it hasn't been like a predominantly black school. It has been a school that's been mixture, white, black, Hispanic, and Asian, all different types of people. So I think that no matter what, because I used to teach in school, in Shreveport, Louisiana, and before the school opened, it was a charter school, they had metal detectors and everything everywhere. And we really didn't have it. We never had a shooting, they had like kids getting fights in middle schools. But they had made it seem where it's like, oh, we're looking for something to happen. Right. But nothing happened there. But you see, like in Florida and like in other states where they've had mass shootings, they don't have any of these things in place.
Right. I used to teach too. I didn't know you taught, but I remember having metal detectors. I taught in Baltimore City, and we had metal detectors. But I also remember like kids sliding by the metal detectors and come in. But this was a discussion I had in the barbershop a couple of weeks ago about how Black students and white students react differently to bullying or situations that may have pushed them over the line to want to attack somebody. Mm-hmm. And the theory was that Black students, their response to things is very emotional in the sense that, and it's isolated to the person who did it to you. You talked about my mama, so I'm going to get you. Right? I'm going to jack you up.
Yeah.
Nobody else ain't got nothing to do with this unless they try to jump in as I'm whooping you up.
True.
Whereas white kids come in and everybody getting it. It ain't they may have a list of people, but if you if you there that day, you might get got too. So there's no kind of discretion. And like you said, there isn't really, I don't think there ever's been a case of like a mass shooting at a Black or predominantly brown and Black school. You just don't hear about it. Mm-hmm. So what is the distinction between those two and how, our children are dealing with their emotions differently? But
that's a good point you made, because I feel like when it comes to, because I've been to a school, I grew up in a town where the school was half and half Black, half white. And I can remember, when I was in 8th grade, I can remember this like it was yesterday, there was I'm not going to say his name, but because he's still alive and they're on Facebook, but he brought a Confederate flag to school and he's running around on the playground during recess. And there's but it was more of him thinking that things belong to him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that privilege, like, okay. So when you say like, sometimes white students would take it off, take their violence out on everybody instead of like, Black people or Black kids in school. They were like, okay, well, you talked about my mama. Well, we about to fight her. We about to do this. Where sometimes when you have a society that teaches, sometimes whiteness and white privilege, that this all belongs to you. Right. I think people will take that, kids will take that internal message from their parents and they internalize it and they like, okay, well, this belongs to me. Everybody made me mad, so I'm gonna do damage everywhere. I'm not saying that every situation is like that, but me coming from towns, places and schools that people think like that and have experienced that, I can see how that's the reason why, it's one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of Black shootings at schools, because we not challenge, but we look at situations totally different.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like I remember fights being either it happened right then and there, or you might have heard about it the next day when the kids got back at school, like, oh, such and such fought this weekend. But that was the end of it. It ain't all right, you know what? You've been messing with me all this year. I'm going home. I'm plotting, a school shooting. I'm coming after you, but everybody else gonna get it too. Like, I'm just going down in this blaze of whatever it is, cause it's not glory, but, the thought process around retaliation is very different from what I've seen, between Black and white children. It's crazy to see, but of course, we could have a whole discussion about different topic. In lighter news, Instagram has heard our cries and decided to implement a little bit of our complaints, and we're going to see a return to somewhat of a chronological order on Instagram. Finally, right?
Because people be like, listen, I don't, when Instagram changed the algorithm, people were all up in arms. I was one of them. A lot of people were, because it's like, okay, you like things to be in order. You know, like dates and days. You like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You look at a post and you be like, okay, that post was 3 or 4 days old, and you want something new and refreshing,
right?
Because that's when you only get to swipe up and down, so you want to see new stuff.
And sometimes I don't know about you, I don't even see the stuff unless I go to someone's page, their profile personally. Like I go directly to the page. I'm like, wait a minute, you been posting this all week? I ain't seen nothing of it.
Nothing.
But like I said, it comes out more when it's like holidays or big events. Like, I'm seeing Christmas posts on New Year's, or I'm seeing Valentine's Day posts today.
For St. Patrick's Day.
Right, for St. Patrick's Day. It's never any kind of rhyme or reason to it. And now they're going back to, they're not committing to saying it's complete chronological order again, but that we will see things that are timely in a timely manner again. So I've seen a little bit of a change in mine. I started seeing it a while back, and I noticed the difference, but I don't know about you if you've seen.
Well, I see that I see that the people who interact with my Insta stories, I see some of their material more now than I would see even though I'm not really, I'm following that person, but I'm not really trying to keep up with that person. It's just some way with Insta stories, I see a lot of people's material more than like people that I actually want to see. I have to go search for their stuff, even if they don't post instant stories, you know what I mean? So I'm glad that they are changing up the algorithm. I wish they would have just kept it the same, but I know I know Instagram is owned by Facebook, and they got to make some money and change up the algorithm and all that kind of stuff. So
right. Especially since Facebook has been the topic of conversation for not using anymore. That was a perfect segue. Thank you.
Here we go.
So today, in major newspaper outlets all across the world, Mark Zuckerberg apologized for how they've been handling this Cambridge Analytica whole drama and debacle. So all this week and last week, the hashtag delete Facebook has been floating around, and it's in response to a whistleblower putting out that Facebook knew of this company, Cambridge Analytica, having information that they shouldn't have had on hundreds of thousands of Facebook users, and they were using that in improper ways. They've known about it since 2014 and was mum's the words about it until someone came out about it in the last, I think, 2 weeks or so. And then it became, well, what does Mark Zuckerberg have to say about this? And he had been suspiciously quiet, and this whole delete Facebook had picked up steam. Elon Musk from Tesla had deleted his Facebook pages for the company. So it was this big thing. People were,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. People were starting to download the data files for their profiles and seeing that Facebook had information on calls they had made down to like location, phone numbers they were calling, had all of their contacts, and we're tracking this information up to a year. So Facebook has been catching it the last week. And I just thought it was funny because I was seeing all this talk about delete Facebook on Facebook. People were posting on Facebook to delete Facebook. So I thought that was hilarious. But now he's actually come out and said sorry and will be better. Is that enough?
I think Mark Zuckerberg always gives these lame apologies. It's like, okay, well, we're sorry. But I don't think that is enough, because when you think about the privacy and the technology, Facebook, they own a lot of our information. They know a lot about everything by purchasing. Even if you're hungry, you may be thinking of pizza. 20 seconds later, a pizza ad will pop up.
Right. And we've all had that feeling where, and there's a meme that floats around. It's like, that moment when you've thought about something and then it pops up on your timeline. There have been plenty of times where like, I know I ain't searched for that. And sometimes it's like, I was just talking about that, but I ain't typed nothing about it, and all of a sudden it pops up. It's scary.
Yeah. And I think that, now with that happening recently, with them collecting information, then also going back into the Russian meddling. I think more people want these social media platforms to be more transparent. And I don't know, I was just skimming through my, on your iPhone, you see like the major news today. But I don't know exactly the whole entire story, but I know the Justice Department wants to make, these tech companies more transparent with the, type of information they collect. Because you just think about Facebook. I mean, Facebook has 1 billion users. I mean, Facebook is more powerful than government.
Yeah.
Like, really. And then they have billions of dollars. So with collecting all this information, having like the money behind it, could they, it's just to switch, not really switch topics, but to go back into Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, you just think about it. Is Mark Zuckerberg going to run for president? Like, you know, if you see all the information that he has at his fingertips, he can control whatever he really wants to.
And how many elections they have information on where they could see like, okay, people responded to this and they responded to that. It's, I have thought about it, but not to the degree that, especially now as we're learning just how much information is collected about you by Facebook on a regular basis. How much access they are privy to. It's crazy. And then not even them, you think about like when you're signing in for an app or another website and you use your Facebook login to do that. They have that on you.
Now they know exactly what you're doing on that app or that platform because you gave them permission. Because you just went through and checked those 3 boxes. Oh yeah, accept and agree.
And that's, so, you know how whenever you see like somebody's doing a quiz or, oh, if I merge this with somebody else, this is what my kids are going to look like. And they have to accept, you know, the terms and let Facebook get the access to it. All these little random quizzes and stuff people be, accepting that Facebook login for. You never know what they're doing with your information after that, but you didn't gave them full access. And very rarely do people go back in and be like, all right, you know what? I'm going to revoke the access. I do every once in a while because like, all right, you know, I don't use this app anymore. Or I don't use this program. Let me revoke my access because they don't need to know what I'm doing now. I needed that for the time being.
True.
But most people don't do that. And there's hundreds of apps that are still collecting your data that you have no idea.
Quizzes, games. Everything.
Yeah, right. It's bananas to even think about. I don't think it's enough either. I would rather see, some kind of action put in place, but let's be real. Are you deleting your Facebook account?
No, I'm not deleting my Facebook account. I have thought about deleting my Facebook account, but the type of business and things that we're in, we can't delete our Facebook account because we use it as a promotion tool. And you just think about Facebook is the largest social media network in the world. You know, it's still, there's billions of people there. So you want to be able to have that platform to target other people for your business purposes. But then also in hindsight, you don't want to have a company collecting all that information, you know, from you, because then you're like, why would you need, listen, we just want this platform to talk to people, but I know they're trying to make money for advertisers and stuff like that. But hopefully in the future, there will be a social platform where it's kind of be like cryptocurrency, where all your information is deleted, right? When like every 24 hours it's refreshed. So nothing is collected. Maybe somebody's listening to this and they can build that next platform, because I think with Facebook being around the next 10 years, I think probably not. Yeah. Because they're at a point where how much can they grow?
Yeah, I think they may be at the tipping
point. They're at the tipping point right now. Yeah. So that's why you see them buying, when they bought Instagram for what is $1 billion. Yeah. They have to go where the people are going, you know? And they're going to keep using their power and their money to buy the next biggest platform so they can take over, so they can't outgrow Facebook. You know, that's the whole entire thing to get Facebook, that keeps Facebook growing. So I don't know. We'll see. I feel like it's very interesting that all the information they collected, but also I think really people need to understand that I really believe Mark Zuckerberg is going to try to run for a major political office, and he has the power to win based off his using social media. And you can see how social media was used in the last election, how a lot of bots and stuff were set up in Russia to influence people. Like I know I was reading an article or watching a video how this lady in North Florida, I don't know exactly the city, but she was setting up events in support of Donald Trump. And there was a Russian company who was helping her promote her campaign, her event, by producing all these fake articles and stuff like that. And people got riled up about it. Trump supporters got like, oh yes, we're going to support this. But it was fake information. But Facebook didn't do anything. You know, they knew the companies that were paying. You know, Facebook knows if there's bots, and I mean, they collect all this information. Yeah. So they knew exactly, but you know, when it came out in the media, you know, they were like, okay, well, we're not going to do this again. Slap on the hand. Sorry. Let the election go on. Let, you know, the president or whatever, you know, continue to be the president. You know, nobody's saying, hey, the next election, well, we really need to look at this and see how, social media is influencing people. And there's people who are uneducated are the people who are easily influenced. People who don't go and okay, they read the New York Times. Okay, I'm going to go to New York Times. I'm going to go to Washington Post. Then I'm going to CNN. I'm going to compare these articles. I'm going to really dig and research. If they see something, they run with it.
Right. Yeah.
That's it.
So while we're on the discussion and the topic of social networks, Twitter was ablaze with hate and pitchforks out for Killer Mike this weekend because on Saturday, a video came out from NRA TV where Killer Mike was the topic of conversation. He was a guest and
on the NRA show.
On NRA TV. He filmed a segment on NRA TV talking about constitutional right to bear arms and how he believes that Black people should be exercising that right, and his thoughts on, the recent school shootings in Florida and whether or not his children were allowed to protest. I don't know if you remember the walkout day for the students. He had some comments about that, and I'm not quoting this directly, but he basically said that he told his children that if they walked out with the rest of their students, that they might as well walk out of the house because they shouldn't be putting their actions behind the opinions of other people. So he's basically
that's contradicting. That's silly,
right? His whole platform of us having the ability to express our opinion on certain things is curbed by his approach to how his children approach their opinions on things. But of course, Twitter went nuts. Probably because the NRA is notoriously known for being anti-Black, among, everything else. But the irony of him feeling like it was okay to film this segment and think that nobody was going to say nothing of it. And then the timing of it airing on the day of March of Our Lives, where gun reform and school shootings are such a topic. He is steadfast in what he did wasn't wrong, and that he's arguing that the NRA released it yesterday to kind of stoke and provoke this kind of response out of people. But it's but you gave them
the meat and potatoes.
Right. You gave them the ability to do it. Right. Yeah. You still accepted the call from NRA and went out there and filmed on this. So people are arguing about whether or not he was right or wrong, or whether it was a lapse in judgment. And then you really got to review the stuff that Killer Mike has said over the last year. I mean, he's done some, and we just talked about this in the last episode, problematic things. And he said some stuff that everybody should have been raising their brow for. And this is just adding on and piling on to that. So, there's allegations. Joy Reid said that he's basically co-signing the NRA by participating. He's arguing that he's not, but he's still not saying that what he did was wrong. What are your take on that? I
think he is co-signing the NRA because you have to understand what the NRA stands for. The NRA stands for National Rifle Association. The NRA is a predominantly white organization. And here's my problem with the NRA. Whenever Trayvon Martin was shot and killed,
exactly.
Philando Castile was shot and killed, and when Philando Castile was an actual licensed gun owner, they did not come out in support of him. They didn't make ruckus. They didn't hey, this guy, even though he's Black, he has a gun. He's registered to carry a gun.
Yeah. What about his rights?
Yeah. What about his rights? But the reason why they stayed silent is because they're trying to protect whiteness. And a lot of organizations are like that. And NRA is number one. But for Killer Mike to go on to a platform or organization like that, and when he goes, this a year ago, 2 years, when Black Lives Matter movement, him being pro, go out there and march and stuff like that, it's contradictory. He's contradicting himself because this organization doesn't stand for any of that. This organization only stands for protecting, the members of that organization. And the majority of the members of the organization are not Black. Right. You may have a few Black people in there, but it's basically to protect America's rights, and the whole
whatever
thing about
that may be.
Yeah, wherever that may be. And whenever you say protecting America's rights, you have to understand, going back before the NRA, America was founded on by taking things. Taking land from Native Americans, driving people, you know, like the Louisiana Purchase, driving people who were Mexican out of that area where they had, you know, where there was their land for a long time. But the NRA and Killer Mike, he knew exactly what he was doing, you know, for him to say, oh, and then also you look at his tweet, he's kind of like, oh, y'all will be okay. Everybody be okay. No, people are not going to be okay.
Right. Here's one of his tweets. He said, that org, he's referencing the NRA, use my words to Black America to inflame organizers of the Worthy March. He's talking about March of Our Lives. But I ain't their rep. I'm just a Black guy who was pro-Second Amendment and told others to be. Also, this video was a week old. So
it don't matter if it was a year old. You still said it.
You still said it. And no, bro, you are their rep because you got on, you went into whatever studios and got behind whatever cameras to be filmed. It wasn't a surprise. It wasn't like MTV called you and then, oh, surprise, you ended up on NRA TV. No, you knew what you were doing. You going on there and not being in opposition or not speaking out about, you know, their anti-Blackness is you repping for them.
Because I know, I'm pretty sure he did not say anything about the NRA not saying anything about the recent shootings and stuff like that, or Black people being killed, like, you know, unarmed Black people being killed, because they're not going to say anything like that because that disturbs their base. Their base is going to start thinking like, why would you say that? You know, they say, oh, well, stop playing the race card. No, not people playing the race card. We see this happening, you know, with media now, with social media. The reason why we're seeing it so much because everybody has a camera phone. There's cameras everywhere. So that's why it's so much prevalent in 2018, which is 50 years ago. You may hear it on the radio or newspaper, but now you see it all the time. And we're like, hey, y'all, we see this. Some of y'all have blinders on. You see it too, but you don't want to see it. And that's what the NRA does.
So I know you guys are probably wondering who I've been talking to for the last couple minutes or so, but I'm going to let you know who that is. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, y'all. What's up? My name is Will Edmond. I do a lot of things. Founders of Adventures of Will, where I do retreats. I take people around the world to experience different culture, to get them immersed in nature, because I feel like once we, you know, get people out of their element, you know, we really become humans then. You know, we see how we're all the same, and then we also get to experience different, like, you know, environments, nature, and things like that, which helps, you know, with our healing, because I feel like nature does heal. And then, you know, I do a lot of other things, real estate, and my thing is just like, I try to get people to live their best life in a like a minimalistic way, you know, to appreciate the finer things that people, like, you know, try to promote positivity, happiness, you know, and equality. That's my whole entire goal. Yeah.
Cool. And you also have a very dope channel on YouTube.
On YouTube, yes. Yeah, I forgot to tell y'all. Y'all gotta go and subscribe to my YouTube. Just search for Will Edmond. This helps the algorithm. Yeah. So I make travel vlogs. So I travel around different countries making travel vlogs, and also on my channel you have vegan food shows. And then recently I just started doing like reactions, because I try to tie everything that I like to do in my channel. So it's like food, music, and travel. And recently I just started doing music reactions and stuff like that. So I like doing fun and creative things on my channel.
Cool. So one of our segments is on your radar, or what we like to call pre-gentrification here. So what is on your radar? What's kind of bubbling for you? And it's at that point where you're appreciating it and you don't necessarily want to share it with everybody, but you also want to be able to talk about it with people.
Yes.
So what's on your radar right now?
What's on my radar right now is an artist out of UK. Her name is Lady. Let me make sure I get her name right, Lady Alicia, because everybody has commented on my. One thing about YouTube people, the community, they'll tell you if you're pronouncing something right. They're like, no, it's not pronounced right like this. They get it phonetics, everything. Chop it up, do it like this. So Lady Alicia. She's out of Birmingham, UK. Amazing rapper. I mean, she spits bars. I think that she's like a mixture of Lauryn Hill mixed with Missy Elliott, Raw Digger. Like, she is so like funky with her rhymes. But also, I like the fact that she doesn't try to promote like sex and stuff like that. She tells people she keeps herself covered, because not saying she keeps herself covered, but she spits bars. She wants you to come here and to listen to her music. You know, I think I've been trying to put a few people on, but I hope that she's like a breakout star this year or next year, because she's right at the top, like listening to her on YouTube and just going through her Instagram. I'm like, I'm a stan, bro.
You're a stan, man.
Oh, bro. Like, she's bad. Like, Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, they're great in their own rights. But, like, she just going against Cardi or Nicki Minaj, bro, call a funeral home. Because somebody's dead. They put them in a casket and push them right out. Because she kills it.
So you're putting your pen down. You were on the lady Leisha?
Like, Leisha.
Literally.
Leisha.
Yeah. You were on her train. You were putting your pen in before she blew up. So you can claim it beforehand. All right. So what's been on my radar is this new documentary series on Netflix called Wild Wild Country. And is taking a look at this cult that came into fruition in the early 80s. And they basically took over a small town in Oregon, and you see like the growth and the fallout from that. And it's really kind of a case study in when white people get mad at black and brown people who have beat them at their own game. So this cult had started in India, and was led by this man named, make sure I'm saying his name right, it's Bangwam. But his right-hand man and the person who really got things done was this woman named Sheila. And, his study and his philosophies had gotten really big in India to the point where, whenever you get big, there's always a backlash, and his life had been put in jeopardy. So they were looking for another place to kind of set up shop. And they moved to this quiet town in Oregon that was like population 40. And
it's kind of like where I'm from, Texas.
Bought this land, and all of their followers started coming there by the thousands. And you see the reaction of this small town to this cult that's been deemed a sex cult, and their reactions to it. And Sheila is kind of the front woman for all of the things that go on. And she was beating them at every turn when they were trying to shut down. They were trying to get the development shut down, and development. And this is something I learned, that if you have at least 150 people, you can create a city based off of that. So they had created a city, and they're trying to get the city shut down, and she turned around and started buying the properties in the town that was next to them, and they took over the government of that town, and then the state got in. So I'm halfway through it right now, but this has completely caught my attention.
I'll be in some. I can't wait to watch that.
Yeah, because Sheila was bad, like, and she's somewhere in some undisclosed location right now, because I haven't gotten to the part where she gets extradited from the country, but she's in hiding right now. But she is talking during this documentary, so it is incredibly compelling, and it has gotten all of my attention right now. So Wild Wild Country on Netflix.
Gotcha.
Get on that, because I need to be able to talk to people about.
Yeah, I'm gonna start watching it tonight, because I need something new to watch on Netflix.
But today's topic is, and we kind of touched on it a little bit when we were talking about news, but we're going to be discussing the issue with the lack of touch for men in our community, the lack of platonic touch, and how that impacts, our day-to-days as Black men. So I thought, people who I would feel like would be great to handle this topic, and I thought of you because of, the work you do with your nature retreats and trying to bring some kind of centeredness to Black people as a whole. And because, hey, you're a Black man. So, you are a pro on this topic, and, I really thought we've had a conversation about this before, and I really wanted to flesh it out further, to really talk about that. But, a couple of years ago, I read an article that basically put up the theory that we as men of Western culture, not even just men in the Black community, were extremely limited when it came to the amount of platonic touch that we received. Like when compared to other cultures around the world, Western civilizations, men had extremely limited amounts of platonic touch, and that led to other issues as young men became full adults. And it coined this term called touch isolation, and a study around the lack of touch and how it impacts certain people. And studies have shown that it can adjust. Well, the touch can be healthy in the sense of like it can balance emotional scales. It helps with good mental health. It has all positives if you're getting the right amount of touch. And the study pointed out that for men of Western civilization, the top 2 types of touch that they receive are either centered around sex or violence. And outside of like your occasional handshake, that was the general amount of touch or types of touch that men received. And it got me to thinking of like, okay, that's just for Western men who are raised in Western culture. What does that mean for men of the Western culture who reside in the Black community? And, you know, I can definitely talk to the experiences I've had growing up in my household and growing into a man I've become because of, you know, those certain things. And of course you can too, but do you think that the lack of platonic touch is an issue that is prevalent in the Black community at all? Do you think that's an issue?
I think it's not just an issue, it's a huge issue. And the reason why, because I grown up into, I would say my mom and dad they are amazing parents. And my dad and my mom never told me like to man up or what you crying for. You know, they allowed me to cry. They allowed me to feel my emotions, to allow me to be human, you know, and I see, just, you know, in school system, like, you know, teaching and just hanging around friends who didn't have that mom and dad, you know, relationship like I did, you know, they're like, oh, you need to man up, stop crying, you know, and they give you all these things where it's like, you don't feel how you're feeling because that's not how a man should be. And it hurts them so much when they become adults in relationships. Cause it's just crazy. I was having brunch this morning with my friends, female friends, and they were talking about, you know, sometimes it gets really hard with dating guys because like I have a lot of women friends, you know, like I'm attracted to all types of people. My energy, you know, like I'm all about love. And, you know, whenever I shake people's hands or women or men, like I embrace you, I give you a hug because study has shown that we need about 20 to 25 hugs per day.
Wait a minute, hold on, what?
Yeah, hugs. Like just like hugs, like giving somebody like a hug.
We need 20 to 25.
I had read an article that we need like 20 to 25 hugs. And just because it makes us feel like that we're loved. Just think about it. If people are listening to this, if you're a man listening to this, how many hugs have you received today? Right. If you receive 0 hugs, that's a problem.
Yeah. I ain't got no hugs today.
No hugs.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, so if we're supposed to receive 20 to 25 hugs a day, that's upwards of what, 140 hugs a week? Think about people who ain't got no hug all week, or even all week. Not even, we won't even limit it to a hug. Like it could be a dap with like a half embrace. That's crazy to think about. So 20 to 25 hugs. That's actually a big goal to attain. That's a hug hour. Yeah.
But you have to understand that that's a hug hour. It may be a little bit less than that, but I know it's a high number. But just think about when somebody gives you a hug. Yeah. How does it make you feel?
Yeah, it's depending upon who it is. It can be like a recalibration, a reset. It could completely change the direction.
Change your day.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
Okay. Keep on, go.
No, but that I mean, it goes back to, you know, that study you were saying. It's like, you know, when you're limited in your receipt of such types of touches, because it doesn't have to be like your girl giving you a hug. It could be, you know, your little cousin. It could be, you know, your homeboy you ain't seen in a minute. It's so many opportunities for you to have that touch that you're not receiving.
Exactly.
And a lot of times for us in the Black community is because of, you know, the stigma of it being homosexual.
And then people like this thing growing up, people like pause. Like,
right.
Trying to give it, like, what are you pausing for? It's like that right there, that affects people. Like, you need to love, one another, but also you need another guy to give you a hug to be like, bruh, it's cool,
right.
And
I remember like the emergence of no homo as a joke, but then I also saw when people were actually taking it seriously, like, no, I don't do that. And it's just so bananas to me, like that some things get labeled as homoerotic or homosexual that have nothing to do with that.
Nothing at all.
But and that's something that it seems it just runs rampant in our community, and it explains a lot of the issues that men in our community have. Like you, I grew up in a household where, those things weren't said. I do remember, but growing up in a household and then you go into other families, like other households in your family, like you go to your uncle's house or your cousin's house, or if your parents are separated, you stay with your mom, you go to your dad's house. I do remember hearing those things like, man up, be a man. And from an early age. Yeah. What you crying for? You better stop crying. Like you never got a chance to have an outlet for these kinds of emotions. And we forced our black boys to become men right away. And it comes in so many different forms. And sometimes we don't realize it, from us calling the younger black boys in our families like little man, or unrealistic expectations being put on them to man up very early, and you're putting these blocks in place, and then you add that to the lack of touch that we as Western people who've grown up in a Western civilization are receiving as a whole, and those things get amplified negatively. One of the things that I think has helped in changing my outlook on platonic touch between men was actually moving to Atlanta. Being down here and joining some of the organizations that I'm a part of has helped kind of change how I interacted with other black men. Namely, and I'll shout out to the Emerging 100 of Atlanta. When I joined that group, it was the first time I was in a space with men in my age demographic who were in abundance, and the first time I was amongst a lot of men who had went to Morehouse or to an all-male school. So, and seeing their level of camaraderie with each other as men, and then not being sexual in any way, that kind of opened my eyes to like, this is kind of silly how the rest of our black communities approach, touch between two guys. That and you and I have talked about this, like travel. Being able to see other cultures and how they interact with each other, especially like cultures where from the outside looking in, they're deemed as being extremely homophobic. Like you go to the Emirates and, of course their rule of law is that homosexuality is illegal, it's banned, it's incredibly wrong. But you go there and you see the interactions between the males of that culture, and to the Western eyes, everything looks like it's very homoerotic, or we would be inclined to believe that they were gay based off of their actions, and they're just being, who they are. You see guys putting their arms around each other, hanging out with each other, and these are, they're friends, and they don't think anything of it. The only thing they think is homosexual is when people of the same sex are having sex with one another.
Exactly.
They don't deem anything else as that. Whereas here, where we're supposed to be the more enlightened civilization, we deem everything.
You wear a pink shirt. Oh, no,
you gay.
You gay.
Right. you give your homeboy a hug. Oh, that's gay.
The hug lasts 3 seconds.
Right.
Instead of 1.5 seconds. Oh,
you crying, man. Stop with that gay shit. Like we have been conditioned to believe that any kind of emotion or expression of emotion is you leaning anywhere closer on the spectrum towards being homosexual, when it's just things that should be natural to you being a human.
Exactly.
And I appreciate travel for being able to open up that door for me. In Malcolm X's autobiography, when he takes his pilgrimage to Mecca, he talks about how the one thing he wished he could take back home was the fact that he would want other black men in the U.S. to be able to travel and see that the world thinks differently of you, and that interactions that the world has are completely different than what's happening in the States or in Western culture. And the West isn't always right about certain things. That's one of the biggest lessons I've learned from being able to step out of the U.S. and see the rest of the world, is that sometimes we do things completely wrong.
Completely backwards.
And this is one of those spaces where, we're doing wrong, and it's to the detriment of, men as a whole in our culture, but especially when you dig into the black community, it gets even worse. So let's actually dig into that. So we talked about the black community a little bit, but what about the white community? Do you think that the lack of platonic touch could be a potential underlying cause of, things like the mass shootings that we've seen, or the way white men, who by all accounts are 9 times out of 10 the person behind any kind of terroristic act that's happening in the States? Do you think that the lack of platonic touch is part of the reasons, or could be one of the reasons, for why we see this kind of approach to emotional, responses to things?
So I think when it comes to platonic touch and, comparing, white men and black men, it's totally different. Whenever you think of the mass shootings that are happening here in America, in schools, or, if it's at a theater, or if it's at a church or something like that, I think that white men are taught that a lot of things belong to them. This whole idea of whiteness, and how platonic touch can relate to, it relates to a lot of the things that they go through, and how, going back to my middle school days, how the guy who brought the Confederate flag out and it was, just antagonizing like everybody. It's just that mind frame that's, that is how it's structured in their minds, is that, hey, this belongs to me. I got to take whoever down. It doesn't matter. When it goes to like Little Ray Ray, Little Johnny, they are going to, if somebody's picking on them or picking on their little sister, they're going to go and take that out on that person. Compared to whenever you see these mass shootings, that a lot of the young white kids are just going all in. They shoot up whoever, whatever, because they have this thing of like, this belongs to me, or I'm. Let me see what would be the word for it? Belonging, and also it has this whole hyper masculine feel about everything that they do. It's like, this belongs to me.
I agree, because a lot of times we see that, just think about the coverage that we get in the media whenever there's a school shooting or a mass shooting. It's always, this person was emotionally unstable.
He was nerdy,
lone wolf, which is like, all of these are code words for people who are not receiving, the 20 to 25 hugs a day, or probably the lowest on the totem pole when it comes to the amount of platonic touch they may be receiving. So what I thought about, I was like, man, that would probably explain why we don't see, the amount, if at all, of any kinds of mass shootings or school shootings in other countries. Like, this is such an American kind of problem that it makes absolute sense for us to be the ones that are lacking in platonic touch, or those kinds of opportunities for interaction. But we're also the leader of these kinds of emotional, because when it comes down to it, these are emotional responses to things.
You're mad, upset. Let's go shoot. Let's shoot something. Let's kill somebody.
Yeah, I can't think of any mass shooting where it was just like, oh, it was because I wanted to. Like, there's always some kind of emotional line riding through these things, whether it's bullying or my emotional response to racism and my emotional response to feeling inferior or feeling like I'm losing whatever kind of privilege I may have. These are all kind of those responses to it. And if they had outlets to express their emotions versus, picking up an assault rifle, and killing innocent people, we may not have the amount of issues that we do when it comes to mass shootings and things of that nature. Hold that thought. We're going to take a brief break, but we're going to come back and finish our conversation on this episode of Ungentrified after a word from one of our sponsors. This episode of Ungentrified is brought to you by Black and Abroad. Black and Abroad is an online travel community dedicated to inspiring and celebrating the experiences of Black travelers and expats. To find out more about the Black and Abroad community, visit weareblackandabroad.com. It's also like, well, what can we do? And not just, I'm not asking what we can do for the white community. That's a problem they need to work on. And first they need to acknowledge it. Until they acknowledge that these shootings aren't isolated and they are acts of terror and we are dealing with terrorists, we can't even get into the conversation of things like, the lack of emotional outlets, for people and whether one of those outlets is touched. But what can we do internally for the Black community, if anything, to curb the lack of platonic touch for our young Black boys? Is there anything that we can do?
Yeah, I think that really focusing on when it comes to, fatherhood and then also mother, raising kids, that we need to encourage families and parents not to use those words or to focus on, masculinity being like the biggest thing. I think also, in the church as well. I know growing up in the church is that it was so male focused, male dominated, like man is the head of the household and none of this and none of that. And I think that we need to really restructure how we're teaching people about masculinity. Like masculinity doesn't mean you're head of a household, because a woman can be a head of a household, whatever. But we telling men that they have to be so super strong when some of them, they can't, they're not strong at all, Me, and there's one who's related at this point, me being a Black gay man, I've had straight guys tell me, like friends, they're like, bro, I'm jealous of you. And I'm like, why? He's like, because you do all this manly stuff and how do you do it? And then women like you and like people like, I'm like, bro, I'm just being myself, right. And just like, I have these both traits. I understand my feminine side. I understand my masculine side because I had a mom and dad that let me explore, not saying to explore femininity. I had parents and grandparents say it's okay to be yourself. And a lot of Black families don't have that. They don't have those parents or the people saying, hey, y'all, it's cool. Let that boy be him. I love my grandma. Shout out to my grandmother. Shout out. I love my grandma. Cause I talked to her today. She's doing better. Yeah. And she used to tell us like, let them kids have fun. Let them do whatever they want to do. And I think that made a big impact to who I am right now as a person, because I accept all different types of people. I have all different types of friends from all different walks of life. Gay, straight, bisexual, transgender, white, Black, Asian. And a lot of Black people can't say that. A lot of Black men can't say that. Sometimes like, no, I ain't gonna have nobody that's transgender. Why not? Did that person ever hurt you or anything like that? Like, show love to those people, because they need love. We all need love. That's what we're missing. We're missing love. We're missing affection, hugs and things like that. I think that we in a Black community, and with like a podcast like this, we need to keep reinforcing the message that it's okay to show your brother love. Because I have friends who just moved to Ghana. And, if you've never been to Ghana, and especially in the country towns of Ghana, that men, they sometimes hold hands or, grab your brother, around the neck, walk down, the street, that's acceptable. Mm-hmm. But if you do that here, like walking around, if I do that walking around in Dallas, Texas or Houston, people look at me like, huh?
Yeah. Or think about like whenever there's always this discussion around like, should men kiss their sons at a young age or things like that. And there's always a fight back and forth about that. And it's like, why are we making something sexual? I think at a certain point, it does cross the line.
Yes.
And I just think about like when I was young and when my youngest brother was young, and like I didn't think anything different of, him giving me a hug or anything like that. But some people get so caught up in just expressions of love. And that's love in the sense of not, I'm trying to, have any kind of sexual love with you, but love as a form of appreciation.
Yes.
And it blows my mind. It's still like, I remember, not even I remember, but I still have this kind of like jerk reaction to when like my good best friends that are male, when they say like, I love you, even though I know I feel it and I'll say it back. It's still kind of like that jerk reaction to it. Or, when I go in to dap somebody up and they extend for a hug, it's that moment in your mind where you're like, okay, yeah, I know this is acceptable, but I still have that kind of just that jolt before going into it. It's like, why does that still happen? Why is that a thing? Why is that so ingrained in me as a black man to not do that? And it's more than just hugs. It's like when two guys go to the movies. First off, the discussion of like whether two guys can go to the movies.
I already know what you're about to say. They're going to leave a seat in between.
Right. They're going to leave a seat in between. But like I said, it's the foundation of women. Why are two guys going to the movies? Because they both want to go see Black Panther. Right? Right. Like it's not a big deal. And then it's it's a seat between, unless it's a crowded spot, crowded theater, then we got to sit next to each other. But the initial space is to not have any space between. It's like, I'm not trying to do anything. It don't have to be like that. And we make such big shows of masculinity. And it's like, who are you proving it to? And I think that's the bigger question behind it. It's like, who are you proving your masculinity to? Like, why are you on a constant kind of wave to show just how masculine you are, other than being yourself?
Just being yourself.
Like, if you're not being yourself, but then someone could really argue, well, me being, me saying no homo every 15 seconds is me being myself. So it's hard to say what could fix it, but like you said, just allowing black boys to be themselves. That's why I get happy when you see, stuff like Black Boy Joy and
Black Men Smile.
Black Men Smile. Yeah. I look at like Chance, the rapper, and like Vic Mensa and all these kids who have seemed to started to come on the other side of the curve of what's acceptable to be a young black man in this world. And they're far more freer than, I may have been at 16, or at 21. And I'm glad to see that, because I'm like, they just get to be themselves. They get to be kids.
Yeah.
We fault everybody else for seeing or assuming that we're so much older, or our children are so much older than what they are, but we don't see the detriment that we put on our kids for being told to man up at such a certain age. I'm not saying that we have given agency to white people to think that our children are older, but we don't allow our children to be children sometimes.
No, we don't.
And then that could lead to issues.
We don't allow our kids to be free. And that's when my friend Anthony David and I were talking about like Jaden and Willow Smith. Just listening to Jaden's new song Icon, and just think about Willow's hit when she was Whip Your Hair and stuff like that, and how people were against how Will and Jada were raising their kids. But I actually like that they gave their kids freedom, because we don't give our kids freedom to show love, to express how they feel. We try to keep them in this box. Like, no, don't think like that. Don't do this. Follow my direction. But a lot of times our direction is wrong. And especially when it comes to black masculinity, we are teaching men to go play football, go do something hard. I used to play football until 9th grade. And, when I got when I started getting hit real hard, bro, I was like, no, I don't want to do this good. No, I'm good. Like all this tough, rough man stuff, nah, y'all gonna break my hand and I'm gonna be really mad, you know? But it's like we need to show, you know, that it's okay to embrace your feminine side. So it's okay to embrace your masculine side, but it don't have to be hyper masculine when you say no homo. I hate that word, no homo, because I love science, and when I hear homo, I'm like, we're homo sapiens. So don't say no homo because we are homo. We're not this homo. So stop saying that, because I get too into, I'm like, we're homo sapiens. I know it means homosexual, but come on now, like, that's like played out. You know, the pause, like that's silly. You're not no record player or nothing. Like you can't pause.
But so one of the things that the studies around like touch isolation and the lack of platonic touch for the Western man is that fatherhood can be a turning point for that. It could either be an opportunity for a man, especially if he has a son, to either perpetuate, you know, the same kind of lack of touch that he's been accustomed to, or having a child now opens the gate to, you know, platonic touch for another. Like that's the first time in a lot of opportunities, or first time for a man to have the opportunity to have platonic touch with another male and not have to think about it. So those first like 5 years can really be key for not only the father, but for the son as well. Because those first 5 years are really important as far as the amount and the types of touch that we receive as children. So, you know, if we can get our Black fathers to realize that maybe the man up kind of approach to our Black boys isn't necessarily the way to go, or not the only way. I mean, there are times where it's like, you know what, you can say man up and it not be detrimental, but it shouldn't be the only way we are, you know, ingraining our children with how to become adults. Because we're robbing them of certain things. And I hope, I see progress. Like I said, when you look at like the kids that are our age, I mentor at a high school, and I get to talk to, you know, these guys, and they're in a completely different space. And I'm so thankful for them to be more in touch than we are, but there's still some remnants of it. And I hope we get to a space where we can be better balanced emotionally as a community. I think it could lead to so much more positive change amongst all of us. Like you said, for our women who want men who are balanced and can express themselves and aren't, you know, using other outlets to do that. You know, like, brothers, you missing out on women who want you to be in that space. They don't want to have to deal with a man child, you know?
Exactly. My friend said the same thing today. She said a man child. She said she's dealing with like the past, you know, people she's, you know, not dating, but went on dates with. They get to a point where it's like, it's a man child, you know, and women, like, they look for people to be emotional. Women are emotional creatures, and guys sometimes be like, no, I'm gonna lock down my emotions because I'm not gonna show you that, because then you're gonna think that I'm not strong, you know? Well, I think women think you're stronger when you can feel how they feel.
Right.
You know?
And then if you think about it, so women are deemed as, well, they are. It's not even deemed. They are far more intelligent usually than men are. And it's probably because they were allowed at a young age to express whatever emotions they had, you know, whether it's crying or being upset about something. They were able to have this full range and exercise that full range from a very young age. And we robbed that of our men. So if men never get to that point, they're always going to be that. I mean, emotion is a form of intelligence. So if we're falling behind and we're waiting for, you know, women to bring us up and kind of open up these emotions for us, you'll be lost. And like I said, they end up dealing with man children. Like I said, I see progress, but we really got to do better with our Black boys at a younger age and let them know that they can be themselves and not put any kind of limits on them.
Exactly. And then being in music and then having a lot of friends of, you know, of different types, I see a lot of like people, the old heads, especially on hip hop. If they see a rapper that may come out in a different type of wardrobe or something, they like, they get all up in arms about it because those younger generation, they're pushing the envelope. They're like, hey, this is who I am. But the older people are always like, no, this is not right. This is not hip hop because you're wearing a dress or your pants are tight or all this stuff. And it goes back to the hyper masculinity, man. We need to have more love and acceptance. That's where if I have kids or my nephew, me and my sister, we're on the same page. It's like, I want my nephew to learn about love and accepting all different types of people at a younger age. Because when you wait and talk to kids when they're teenagers or adults, it's too late then. They got to see that, hey, we're all the same. We may have some differences growing up, but we're still human. We still deserve love and respect. And, showing black men that you can't be open about who you want to be, who you want to love, or just going back to the physical touch. Like, it's cool. Brothers need to like give more hugs. Right. I see men walking around here are like, they're mad as hell because they don't got love, around them all the time. Right. Yeah.
It's so. In conclusion, get your 20 hugs a day.
Get your 20 hugs. Yeah.
Right.
Even if it may not even be a full hug. Because some people be like, I'm not gonna do a dap hug.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And even if it's a dap hug, like get as close to your 20 hugs a day as you can. Hug your sons. Make sure your sons know that they can be children before they
let them be children.
Right. So that they're not man children. Our women will appreciate that.
Very much so. Yeah. I know, because my women friends tell me all the time, like, bro, this is what I'm dealing with. I'm like, I see why they're more attracted to me as a male, because I'm like, I understand. Listen, I will sit here and cry with you. It's okay. And they're like, oh, Will, really? Yeah. But most guys are like, nah, why are you crying? Bro, you gotta feel what your woman is feeling. Like, the relationship's not gonna last long, And then, me dealing with, other guys that I date, sometimes they're not the same. They're the same way. They're like, no, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna feel how I feel. Like, no, bro, cry sometime. It's okay. Just think about it. A week ago, I was crying in front of you, bro. My grandma was sick. And like, I'm gonna be like, man, that's my grandma. That's like my ride or die, my fishing homie. And I was sad. I was upset, But it's okay. We're human. It's okay to cry. Yeah. It's okay to hug each other. I mean, like, I think as we get so far along in technology and like our ideas and our culture, we forget that we're human. Like, if you look at animals, we're all animals. You look at like a lion or cub or bear or something. Like, they don't look at sex like playing around, being like, this is how we're supposed to deal with each other. But we have all these society standards of what you should do, what you can't do. And traveling has has made me have opened my mind, eyes up to a touch and like how people, deal with certain situations.
Yeah, I'm so thankful I have the opportunity and the ability to do that. And like you said, it opens up your eyes just as a black person and as a black man as to how you're received in the world and how the world may receive you. And it gives you the opportunity to change not only your perspective, but other perspectives that may have been influenced by what they see in the media, about who you are. But it just, in the realm of platonic touch or, touch between males, it really changes the game for it. And it takes a while to kind of realize that you've been jacked up about it all along. But, it's a certain level of confidence that I think that we as men of the Western civilization just don't have. We think we are the people who think we are the best at certain things, and we are completely off. But we can't be confident in our emotions like other cultures may be. But I don't know. Like I said, as far as within our community, I think we're getting to a better space. And I don't know.
I see some progress, but is there room for improvement? There's a whole lot of room for improvement.
Absolutely. Because we still know people who are man up in their children all the time, and it's just leading to issues.
And it's hopefully more, men or women are also, listening to this podcast, and they can take, bits and pieces how they can help raise, their kids, and showing that, hey, it's okay to, hug other people, hug your brother, your sister, just hug people in general, and just like try not to, promote this hyper masculinity that we have going on, because I don't like it, bro. Like, I'm a man, but I don't like the whole macho man and like, I'll have to have the big truck, and I'm coming from Texas. I see it all the time. I gotta have the big truck. I gotta have it sitting up this high because I'm a man. Like, what does that really mean?
Yeah, the idea of what a man is it makes no sense.
It does.
Or we as Westerners have made it make no sense.
Mm-hmm.
We've attributed all these other things to what makes you a man versus what actually makes
you a man. Mm-hmm.
So, Will, thank you for chatting with me.
Thank you, Ken.
About this topic today. Where can they find you being fully expressive in your black man?
Fully expressive my black man.
Right. Where can they find you getting your 20 to 25 hugs a day? Where can they find you?
Man, you can find me on my YouTube channel. Whenever I travel around different countries, like, I think people like my vlogs because I go and talk to everybody. Like, people come up to me, you're giving me hugs because I showcase positivity, smile. Your smile in other countries mean a lot to people. They see that you're happy, Yeah. And when I do travel, I feel happy. I love meeting people, and it just translates. So you can find me on YouTube. Just search Will Edmond. That's EDMOND. Instagram, at Will Edmond. Don't use Twitter anymore. Facebook, Adventures of Will. Just type that into the search. So you can find me all over the interwebs. Let's connect on YouTube. So I'm putting a lot of content out on YouTube in the next couple of weeks. So you can get all that love, positivity. If y'all want to just hug your computers when you're watching my video. If you want to get some love and affection.
And what's your website?
Website is willedmond.com.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And of course you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, your community announcement board at your church at Kent_ESQ. You can also join the conversation and let us know what you think of today's podcast by using the hashtag UngentrifiedPod. We're also on Instagram and Twitter at UngentrifiedPod, as well as on Facebook, UngentrifiedPod, and the website, ungentrifiedpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, Will. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
For being with us, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.